Welcome, I'm Todd Raffel with Eightfold. We're eightfold.ai. We're a talent intelligence platform here with Jen Tracy. She's in Charlotte, North Carolina, and she's a vice president at Spectrum. Spectrum has been largely going, I don't want to say business as usual, but not like any kind of a deep recession during this recession. Did slow down a bit in its business, but still has been hiring, right? And you in fact hired thousands of people this year, and now we're picking back up to kind of where it was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. So just to give you some perspective, obviously as an essential service, we really can't or don't have the luxury of telling people you can't come to work or things like that. So we still need to have people report. But at the same time, it's also been a critical service for the country as they started working from home or doing school from home. We've hired about 4,500 people since March. And in, I would say, March, April, May, we saw a decrease of about 50% of our requisitions. But in June, we actually bumped back up to pre-COVID levels in terms of our requisitions. And although we've seen a little bit of an increase in applicant flow, not to the level that you would expect given the unemployment figures.
Because of the things people have talked about, yes. Not wanting to be around people, possibly receiving unemployment, childcare issues.
Exactly.
Sums it up. But meanwhile, with a little bit of a slowdown, you kept nurturing your pipeline. And how'd you do that?
So we basically flipped it on its head, so for our military team or our university team that can't go to campus or we can't, go out to the bases and interact with people in person, we flipped those partnerships on the head. So for hiring our heroes, which is one of our key military partnerships, we partnered with Brazen to make sure we could teach people how to use the virtual recruiting tools that are out in the marketplace today. Same thing with our diversity partners. So we have an external diversity and inclusion council, which National Urban League, LULAC, and MMTC are partners on, and we've done similar webinars with them. For university, we've started doing content-specific webinars that might be interesting to the students. So we were fortunate that we had 235 interns. Half of them were actually on-site in our facilities, half were virtual. And we did a webinar hosting some of our former interns focusing on conversion, because that's what we want. Ultimately, we want that early talent pipeline to convert. And, it's also important to keep the hiring manager's perspective in mind. And so we were able to do some really interesting webinars with that.
And speaking of interns, you did something really interesting to have was it your interns who were involved in a really interesting cause to help the larger community at this time?
Sure. We normally partner with our corporate social responsibility team to do a build, which is obviously not possible during these times. And so we actually partnered with We Hero, which is an organization that has several different options that you could do virtually. And so we actually had each of our interns create a kit so they could design what was on the bag. And it was basically school supplies, but it was personalized. And so I think my favorite example of that was we actually had a former teacher who was an intern who wrote a really nice personal note to the student that would receive his school supplies. And so the kit gets sent to the person's home. They put the package together, make it personalized, and it gets shipped back to We Hero for distribution. And so it's always been a cornerstone of our internship program, because I think it's an important part of good business practices as individuals grow throughout their career.
And these interns doing that were virtual interns or not virtual interns?
Half and half. So some were actually in an office, some were at home, but we were able to do everything we normally do with our interns, but in a virtual way. So they began and ended their internship with a Go game, which is normally like in a downtown, and you're running around town. And it's a great way to have their mentors and each other connect. This was done more in a kind of a Jeopardy fashion with a game online. Still fun. Certainly would have been better to be in person, but you make the best of it.
And last thing, with the virtual interns, did it help? Did it allow more of them to be interns because they wouldn't have been able to even take the internship because they were in the wrong location and they would have had to fly there and where would they live and whatnot?
We had some of that, not as much as you would think. There was one offer we had to rescind simply because that person was actually in a different country and had already flown home and were not able to get back. And trying to adjust for time zone factors, it did not work. But that was the only anomaly there. In a lot of cases, we have a variety of different executions of how people are in the office. You can see I'm in the office now. Currently, a quarter of my team will be in the office. So 1 week out of every month, each of my teams are in. And so that was part of why we also had virtual, because some people would be on site for week 1, week 2, they'd be virtual. So without trying to get too, it's very complicated.
Jen Tracy, again, she's a vice president at Spectrum. She's in Charlotte, North Carolina. Good luck with everything.
Thanks so much, Todd.